In the marble shadows of ancient Rome, one woman's name was whispered more than any emperor's decree. Valyria Messalina, the Empress of Temptation, the serpent of the imperial bed. They said her beauty could melt steel, and her hunger could devour empires. By day, she was the wife of Claudius, ruler of the known world. By night, she ruled a darker kingdom, one of secrets, lust, and power, where emperors bent their knees to desire. But beneath her silk and perfume lay a terror Rome could not name. The Senate feared her, the guards obeyed her, and the gods themselves seemed to watch in silence as the Empress turned passion into punishment, and pleasure into politics. History painted her as a monster. But monsters are born of their times, and hers was a world of decadence, betrayal, and blood. Tonight, we uncover the truth: Rome buried beneath 1,000 lies, the horrifying rituals, the secret chambers, and the empire trembling beneath her touch. This is not a story of love, but of obsession. And if you think you've heard every sin of Rome, you're wrong. Every forbidden queen becomes a ghost of history. Don't let her fade again. Subscribe, and keep her story alive. Messalina's empire of temptation was spreading like wildfire through Rome's highest ranks. The senators, the generals, even the priesthood, all whispered her name in trembling awe. To be seen at her side was fortune. To be seen defying her was death by silence, a disappearance, a note erased from the imperial records. She was more than an empress, she was a storm draped in silk. By day, she stood beside Emperor Claudius like the image of loyalty, her face calm, her words soft as honey. But when the sun fell beyond the Palatine walls, another world awakened. Messalina ruled that world. It was said she walked among Rome's darkest streets disguised as a commoner, that she entered taverns where nobles would never dare to step, that she played with the boundaries of decency and dominance until even the gods turned their eyes away. But this was not mere pleasure, it was conquest in another form. Every heart she ensnared, every secret she collected, became a weapon in her invisible war for control. The Roman elite were her chessboard. Lovers became pawns, rivals became trophies, and scandal became her shield. The more they whispered about her, the stronger she became, because every rumor fed her legend. The men who sought to expose her found themselves ruined before they could even speak. They underestimated the Empress they called perverse. They didn't understand, she was not ruled by lust. She used it, the way a general uses fear before battle. Messalina knew Rome's hypocrisy. The senators spoke of virtue by day, and sought her company by night. She laughed at them all. The more she gave, the more they revealed, names, alliances, plots. Each encounter was a negotiation, every secret a step closer to power. Even Claudius, the emperor himself, remained oblivious. His trust in her was unshakable, blind as stone. He believed she was his faithful companion, his devoted wife. But behind his back, the Empress had turned his empire into a theater of corruption where she was both playwright and star. There were stories of banquets that began with laughter and ended with tears, where Messalina would watch the most powerful men of Rome humiliate themselves just for a chance to please her. Some said she delighted in it, others said she was testing them, probing the limits of their loyalty. Whatever the truth, Rome began to tremble under her shadow. Her name became both a fantasy and a curse. Mothers warned their sons about her, poets sang of her with both fear and fascination. Yet beneath all her power, there was something darker growing, a sickness of the soul. Power is never enough for those who rule by desire. She began to crave not only submission, but destruction. The more forbidden, the more thrilling. Her pleasures became performances, her performances became rituals. She wanted to see how far Rome would bend before it broke. But power built on secrets can never last. The whispers that once worshipped her began to sharpen into accusations. A senator betrayed in love turned his pain into vengeance. A jealous noblewoman leaked a rumor. One by one, the stories reached the emperor's ear. Claudius dismissed them at first. How could he believe that the woman he loved, the mother of his children, was capable of such debauchery? But doubt, once planted, grows like ivy through marble. And Rome was listening. The Senate, the guards, the people in the streets all waiting for the empire's perfect couple to shatter. Messalina, sensing danger, only pushed further. Her private life became an open challenge to the men who sought to control her. She mocked them from her gilded chambers, knowing that no one dared to confront her directly. Her arrogance was intoxicating and fatal. One night, at a secret feast beneath the imperial gardens, she made her boldest move yet. Surrounded by Rome's wealthiest and most corrupt, she declared herself not merely the emperor's wife, but the true ruler of the Roman heart. Some cheered, others stared in silent horror. In that moment, Messalina crossed a line from which there was no return. From that night onward, the city turned against her. The Senate began to plot in whispers, the Praetorian Guard watched her steps, and the emperor, the man she had deceived, began to see through the veil. Messalina's world, once built on pleasure and control, was cracking. Yet still, she danced through the danger like a goddess who believed herself immortal. She did not see that her throne was built on sand. Every empress who plays with fire believes she can master it. Messalina had turned lust into power, but now, power was turning into fear. Her allies began to disappear. Her courtiers avoided her gaze. The laughter that once filled her halls grew faint, and the torches that lit her banquets burned lower each night. She was still beautiful, still deadly, but the empire had begun to whisper a different name behind her back, the Empress of Shame. The night Rome turned against her began in silence. The wind that carried the scent of her gardens also carried whispers, whispers of betrayal, whispers of judgment. Valyria Messalina stood before her mirror, draped in jewels that gleamed like stars stolen from the heavens. But even she could feel it now, the air was different, heavy, watchful. The laughter that had once echoed through her halls had vanished, replaced by the sound of footsteps in corridors that no longer belonged to her. Messalina had spent years bending men to her will, but now the very men who had adored her were gathering in the Senate, sharpening their words into daggers. Claudius, the emperor she had deceived, sat in a daze as his advisors unfolded parchment after parchment of accusation. Lists of names, descriptions of her secret feasts, testimonies from servants who had once bowed at her feet. Rome's most powerful men no longer feared her, they feared being associated with her. As the Senate murmured and raged, Messalina prepared another of her midnight gatherings, unaware that her doom was already in motion. She stood on her balcony, watching the torches of the Praetorian Guard flicker in the distance, mistaking them for celebration lights. She believed she still ruled their hearts. She didn't yet know that the torches were marching toward her. That same night, an officer burst into her chambers. His face pale, his eyes filled with something she hadn't seen in years. Pity. "The emperor knows," he whispered. Messalina froze. The music stopped. The dancers fled. And for the first time in her life, fear entered her heart like a dagger of ice. The guards moved swiftly. Messalina ran barefoot through her gardens, her silk gown tearing against the stone paths, her golden crown slipping from her head. She tried to summon her allies, but none came. The gates that had once opened for her now stayed locked. The lovers she had collected had vanished into the shadows, pretending they never knew her. She fled toward the villa of her mother, trembling, desperate. Some say she tried to write a letter to Claudius, begging for mercy. Others claim she laughed instead, refusing to plead. But the truth? Even history couldn't decide whether she faced her end with defiance or despair. The Senate demanded her death. Claudius hesitated. He wanted to believe she had been slandered. But then they told him everything, the secret ceremonies, the mock marriage, the humiliation she had brought upon his throne. The emperor, humiliated and broken, could no longer protect her. He gave the order. As dawn broke, Messalina was found hiding in a garden shed, surrounded by a few trembling servants who refused to abandon her. When the soldier approached with the blade, she begged to see Claudius, but he would not come. The soldier hesitated, how do you kill an empress, even one condemned? She took the blade herself. Her hands shook. Her courage faltered. And so, in the final humiliation, the officer did what she could not. The empire that once bowed before her name now erased it. Statues of her were pulled down, her portraits burned, her name struck from records. In a single decree, Valyria Messalina ceased to exist. But her ghost lingered. For years after, the women of Rome whispered her name in secret. Some out of fear, others out of envy. Because even in death, Messalina had done what no woman before her had dared, she ruled Rome's most forbidden desire. Her fall was not just the end of an empress. It was the end of an era, the moment Rome began to drown in its own excess. The empire that once conquered the world had finally been conquered by its own decadence. The city stood still that morning. The courtyards that once glowed with her laughter now lay silent. The fountains ran clear again, the air seemed purer, but Rome itself felt emptier. Because no matter how monstrous the world believed her to be, it could not deny that she had been alive in a way none of them dared to be. Messalina's story became a warning, a tale whispered to young noblewomen about the dangers of beauty, of hunger, of power. But some whispered another truth, that she was not a monster at all, only a mirror. A reflection of the empire's own sickness, wrapped in human form. The sun rose over Rome, cold and unfeeling. The streets that had once trembled beneath the empress's laughter were quiet now, filled only with the echo of sandals and the soft hiss of sweeping brooms. Valyria Messalina was gone. Her body, once worshipped as divine, was buried without ceremony in a nameless grave outside the city walls. No procession, no mourning, no empire to grieve her. Just the wind moving through the grass, and the silence of a name erased from marble. But Rome, even in its cruelty, could not forget her. Her absence hung over the city like incense after fire, sweet, heavy, impossible to ignore. The nobles who had once toasted to her health now denied ever meeting her. The poets who once wrote verses in her honor now rewrote history to call her a demon. And yet, behind closed doors, her memory lingered. Servants whispered that the emperor still spoke her name in his sleep. That he woke in the night calling for her. That he wept when he saw her jewelry sealed away in golden chests, never to be touched again. Claudius ruled for many years after Messalina's death, but those who served close to him said the empire never truly recovered. For how can a man rebuild a palace when the ghost of its queen still walks the corridors? He grew distant, quiet, always staring at the empty chair beside his throne. Her name was never spoken again in public, but her presence haunted every decision he made, every law he passed to curb the excess she embodied. He banned certain feasts, restricted gatherings, ordered new codes of purity, but no law could cleanse the memory of her reign. And so, Messalina became legend. The common people told stories that blurred truth and myth. Some said her spirit still roamed the gardens where she died, whispering to those who sought forbidden pleasures. Others claimed her soul had fled to the underworld, where she ruled among the lost and the damned as queen of those who desired too much. Every tale was different, but all agreed on one thing: her power had not died, only changed form. As centuries passed, her story was rewritten by men who needed a monster to blame for their own decay. They called her wicked, cursed, unholy. They turned her name into a warning to every woman who dared to hunger for more than what she was given. Be careful, they would whisper. Don't become another Messalina. And yet, even as they spoke, Rome continued to live as she had lived, feasting, scheming, desiring. In destroying her, they destroyed nothing. They had only silenced the mirror that showed them their own reflection. But what if the truth was different? What if the woman they condemned was not the cause of Rome's corruption, but its creation? A product of a world where power was survival, and seduction was the only weapon left to those born without a sword. Messalina's crimes, perhaps, were not crimes at all, but acts of rebellion in a world that feared the strength of a woman who refused to kneel. Years later, when historians tried to piece together her life from fragments, they found contradictions everywhere. Records burned. Letters forged. Testimonies twisted by envy and politics. No one could agree on who she truly was. To some, she was a temptress who destroyed Rome's virtue. To others, she was a victim of her own beauty, condemned by the very lust she inspired. In truth, perhaps she was both, the saint and the sinner, the goddess and the ghost. The empire wrote her story in blood, and time sealed it in shadow. But every empire leaves behind echoes. And hers still lingers, in the stories we tell, in the fears we inherit, in the way power and passion still dance the same dangerous waltz she once led. When Rome buried Valyria Messalina, it believed it was burying its shame. But centuries later, her story still breathes. Because history never destroys what it fears, it hides it, hoping we forget. Yet some ghosts refuse to stay silent. Messalina's is one of them. She was called the most perverted woman of her age, the disgrace of the empire, the downfall of virtue. But history, written by those she defied, never tells the whole truth. Behind every accusation, there was admiration. Behind every tale of scandal, there was power they couldn't explain. She lived in a time when a woman's worth was measured by her obedience, and her silence was her virtue. Messalina shattered that silence. She dared to be visible, to hunger, to command. And though Rome punished her for it, the same empire that condemned her could never erase her completely. Because the truth of her existence, her ambition, her defiance, her fire, was carved into the very stones of the world she ruled. To the men of her time, she was sin incarnate. To us, she is something far more dangerous, a warning of what happens when power fears desire. Her life reminds us that the most terrifying stories in history are not about monsters at all, but about those who were too human for the age they lived in. Messalina loved, schemed, and hungered as the men around her did, yet it was only her hunger they called unholy. That is the cruelty of history, it always chooses its villains based on fear, not fact. In every age, there is a Messalina. Someone vilified for refusing to fit the cage built for them. And in every age, the world pretends it is virtue to destroy them. But those who look closely, those who dig beneath the ashes, know that every accusation hides a confession. Rome didn't hate Messalina because she was evil. Rome hated her because she was free. And so, as the centuries turned, her name became a whisper that refused to die. Artists painted her, scholars argued over her, playwrights used her story to question morality itself. She was no longer a woman, she was an idea. A reminder that the line between saint and sinner is drawn by those who hold the pen. And perhaps that is why we still speak her name today, not to shame her, but to understand her. Because in every empire, every kingdom, every age, there are those who rule through fear, and those who rule through desire. Valyria Messalina ruled through both. Her legacy was not purity, nor corruption, it was power in its rawest, most human form. Her story ends where all great empires end, not in triumph, but in silence. Yet silence is not death. It is only waiting. And every time her name is spoken, every time her story is told, she rises again, wearing the crown that history tried to melt. So, let her memory burn a little longer. Let her name echo once more through the ruins of Rome. Because no matter how much time passes, we are still haunted by the same question she left behind. How far would you go, if your desire was your only weapon?